wake up, let's get it started. Dreams in the air, no one's left out-hearted. Building a space where the bold come to play. Stream like a boss, this is your day. Stream like a boss, take the crown. Lift your hustle, don't back down. Build your crew, make it thrive. We go live, live, live. Service game strong, now it's your time. Leads rolling like rhythm and rhyme. Community grows with every view. Boss up now, it's all on you. Stream like a boss, take the crown. Lift your hustle, don't back down. Build your crew, make it thrive. We go live, live, live. Take the crown, lift your hustle, don't back down. Build your crew, make it thrive. We go live, live, live. We go live, live, live.
All right, folks, what is up? I'm Tanya Smith, and I am super excited and thrilled to bring a special guest to you tonight. This is Stream Like a Boss TV, in case you did not know this. And it is our Thursday night. So, you know, I love to be here on live stream with you on Thursdays to talk a little bit about how to leverage video. And we're actually going to be talking a little bit about a specific type of video. We're talking about podcasts tonight. So this is why I had to bring one of the experts, a pro and a friend, on to talk with you about whether or not you should think about video. Now, video in terms of podcasting is not really new, but there have been some developments. And if you've heard or seen that Apple is going to be introducing, or I'll say reintroducing and phasing in some things relative to video podcasts, this is your time for you to really pay attention and to see if this is right for you. So if you're thinking about launching a podcast this year, 2026, this episode might slow you down in a good way, because starting a show without a clear why is not bold. It's expensive. So today we're going to unpack how to know whether or not podcasting will actually build your authority and your opportunity, or just become another content obligation. My special guest who is going to be joining me today is Dr. Julie Marty-Pearson. So I'm going to bring her on to the scene right now, and then I'll give a little bit more of an intro, and then we gotta meet and greet her, y'all. So look, if you've been watching our show for any level of time, you know that you put in hashtag OG because you've been here before, your family now, your community. But if you're brand new, I want you to type in hashtag newbie, and I'm looking for your comments, hashtag newbie and hashtag OG, wherever you are. We're broadcasting on several spaces tonight, both in vertical and horizontal. So YouTube, LinkedIn, you name it, that's where we are. Let me go ahead and bring our special guest on right now. Dr. Julie Marty-Pearson, what's up, lady?
Hello, hello. So happy to be here. You know, I always love it when I get to guest and catch up with friends.
Well, you know what? We are definitely friends. And let me give you your due. So, Dr. Julie Marty-Pearson, a visibility coach and a podcasting mentor. This is real talk, y'all. I know a lot of people say that they are, but she's truly a mentor who helps purpose-driven women own their voice, share their story, and grow their visibility through podcast hosting and guesting. She hosts two podcasts, but I know you're going to talk a little bit about something, including The Story of My Pet, which is a top 5% globally ranked show that's advocating for animal welfare. And you know, we love animals here. So she's the founder of Podcast Your Story, along with a thriving network and a membership community that is supporting women and non-binary podcasters to collaborate, connect, and grow strategically. And again, Julie, I am super excited that you are here and glad that you're here to talk about whether or not people should actually do a podcast in the first place. Because I know it's the hot thing. I know this, right? We know people say it all the time, but we want to get serious with people and explain to them what that really means, right?
Absolutely. We
So,
shouldn't do something just because everybody else is.
but sometimes we do that. Sometimes we do that.
Absolutely.
So we're going to help folks out. Before we do that, what is something that's not in your bio that you would like for people to know?
Well, I always like to share that, podcasting is my world now, career-wise and even, fun-wise. But before COVID, I actually spent 20 years working in higher education. So my previous career, I was a teacher. I taught psychology and statistics, and I worked in different positions doing things like research and assessment. So what I love about podcasting is in a lot of ways it's brand new and totally different, but I also get to use those skills. I get to use my data skills. I get to use my teaching skills, helping other people learn what I've learned. So I always like to share that to say that anybody can go into podcasting, even if that wasn't your career or isn't your career. There's so many possibilities with it, and it just keeps changing too.
I want to show you some love because there's some folks that are in the comments that are saying hello. So we're going to reach out and say hello to them back. I am seeing William. What's up? Bill Rochelle. Bill is in the house, the boss. Look, you're the boss. Paulette, good to see you. Hi. Hello from YouTube. Linda says, hello, everyone from Ontario, Canada. Love to see it. Love to see it. We got hashtag OG in the house, Bill. We've got Connie in the house, who is a newbie. So it's wonderful and beautiful to welcome you in, Connie. She says, hi, Julie.
Yes. Hi, Connie. I know Connie well. She's a fabulous podcast guest and is just starting her journey to launch her own.
Very nice. Very nice. And I see some folks that are over as well on our Substack space. So good to see all of you. Margaret Williams is over there. Martha Giffen. There's a whole lot of folks. So I can't name all of you, but just know that I see you. And we're welcoming you to ask questions if you have them as we're having this conversation, which is going to be candid and for real, because we don't know how to do anything other than being real and transparent with you. So let me ask you the first question, Julie. And this is, when somebody says, I think I want to start a podcast, what is the first question that you ask? How do you respond to them?
Well, I definitely will start with why. And that seems basic, but it is always interesting to me what comes from that question. And the reason I start with that is because I tell everybody this. It's like, you have to be clear on your why. Otherwise, you're just doing it to do it. And I am a prime example. I have started podcasts without a clear why. And then I realized, wait, why am I doing this? And I pause and reflect and go back to it when I feel it's right. So I ask why, because with podcasting, there could be 20 different reasons why someone thinks I should start a podcast. But having a clear idea of, even if there's a lot of reasons, what's your primary reason? Because then that's the reason to focus on with what it's going to be about and how you're going to launch it, and setting goals, which a lot of people don't do. They just launch and see what happens. It's like, no. Let's, especially if it's related to your business, we want to understand your why, and then what those goals are, and what's your real focus as you're getting started. Because if not, then without a goal, you have no way to measure if you're actually doing what you want to do with it.
So what is the danger? Because what I know, I can see people pushing back and saying, hey, I just wanted to try this out because I heard it was the hot new thing. So for instance, because we know, and we're going to talk a little bit about this, that Apple has come out with this, I'm going to say recent announcement, but I know there were ways that you could actually get video podcast onto Apple, but now they're kind of expanding your access to be able to do that. But sometimes you are pushed simply by the trends. So what is the danger in being pushed or nudged into creating a podcast simply for the trends?
So I will give myself as an example. about 2.5 years ago, when I decided to switch my business from career coaching to going into coaching within podcasting, I thought, well, I should have a podcast about it then, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
duh. I already had my pet podcast, but I thought, well, I need to have one about this because that's what you do. So I started it with no clear direction. No, I was still figuring out what my podcasting business was going to look like and what my offers were and what. So I put out episodes and I was like, I don't even know what I'm doing. I'm just interviewing whoever I want and putting content out. And so I actually, after 6 episodes, I paused it for over a year. And I let myself do the research and the work and the networking and listen to what people needed and wanted and did other things. And then I came back to it when I was like, okay, now I know what this is. And I know what the content should be so that it is actually leading people to my business and not just people listening to it and go, oh, that was fun or that was a great episode, but it's not actually directing them anywhere.
Yeah. And you know what? I would just add to that. One of the things that is interesting about starting with trends, right, is that some people are super successful with that, but it's a very tiny percentage of people that can just kind of throw something out there and see what sticks and it works. So if you're that person who's kind of thinking about it and you want to at least just put your toe in the water and experiment, I really love what you said, Julie, about the fact that you did that, but then you realized, wait a minute, there's more power if I actually step back a little bit and do the research and the homework and put this out there the right way, in a way that is really going to make an impact, in a way that I feel passionate about.
Right. And I will say, podcasting is a lot of work. So if you don't enjoy it and feel passionate about what you're talking about, it turns into a job, and that's going to translate, right? The power of podcasting is the connection we're building with people who are listening or watching. But if you're not passionate and not showing up authentically, that connection is not going to grow because it's going to kind of show up. But there's nothing wrong with trying it too. My pet podcast, that was my first podcast. I started it. I didn't edit the first few episodes. People started listening and it went somewhere and it's turned into something I'm proud of, but it's also kind of my side project. So it quiets down when I don't have time for it. So podcasting can be different depending on, again, that purpose and understanding it. But I always want people to really be clear if they're doing it for their business, because if you're going to put the time, effort, and money into starting, you want to make sure you have the structure and the time to keep it going. Otherwise, that's kind of wasting all of that.
Yes, absolutely. And good evening to you, Sharon. And Nathalie, we got a hashtag OG, and she's pulling a quote. The power of podcasting is about connecting. And Nathalie knows all about connecting. So absolutely, that's so important. Okay, here's another question. What do you think the role of podcasting realistically should be when it comes to revenue? Because you mentioned the whole idea of podcasting for your business, but then there are hobby podcasts. What other types of, before I even get into the whole revenue thing, what other types of podcasts have you seen that have been successful? So you mentioned the whole idea of doing kind of like the hobby podcast with your pets. And it actually is not just a hobby, it's a cause.
Right.
When you talk about animal welfare.
Podcasts.
What are some others?
Podcasts are important.
Okay.
I see people who maybe they have a book and they want to take that content into a different form. So it isn't necessarily revenue, but it's leading people to what they write about or what other content they create. Sometimes it's just about creating community. Sometimes it's about finding a way to connect with other people. And I will say my pet one, that's kind of how it started. I wasn't necessarily starting it to be an advocate. I was starting it as fun and talking about pets. And I started connecting with all these other amazing women who were in their 30s and 40s like me, who didn't have human children, who love pets. And it actually supported their advocacy. And that's kind of when I shifted to really that focus. But originally it was kind of like, I didn't realize it, but I was using it to build community. So I think community building, advocacy, which we need so much. Obviously there are revenue ones, but sometimes people do it just for the love of whatever they're talking about. I was on a podcast that was for Bruce Springsteen super fans. Not that I was one, I ended up there for some reason. So, I mean, there's so many reasons. And he talked about how he just, the questions he had, and he asked me about my first concert and, all these things that were just this great experience that it was only about connecting and meeting awesome people. So, there are definitely other ways to do it. But I know a lot of people do it because they see it as a source of potential revenue.
Should you be focused? And so this is a real question I know somebody out there is asking. And by the way, folks, we are live. So wherever you are, feel free to go ahead and ask a question if you have it, and we'll make sure we start so we can come back to it. But one of the questions I suspect is out there is, how do you decide when to make money with a podcast? Because, some people are going to say, hey, I just want to create one so that I can make money. It's similar to YouTube, where they're like, I want to have a YouTube channel so that I can be the next Mr. Beast, right? And it's not specifically for a cause or for, a different type of focus. It is solely to drive revenue. When do you think people should make that move and say, yeah, this podcast realistically is going to drive revenue for me?
Yeah, one thing I will always say is podcasting is a long game. It's a marathon, not a sprint. And all those people, Mr. Beast, Caller Daddy, they were doing it for years before it was a real source of revenue. And they also have teams behind them now pushing that revenue. So for me, what I try to get my clients to realize is, even if their maybe long-term goal is revenue or leads in their business, to start off with something easy, like increasing their visibility by setting a goal of how many downloads they want in their first month or in the first 3 months, something they can measure. Because here's the thing, if you hit a certain goal based on visibility and downloads, what's going to happen? If you're doing well, people are going to be going to follow you. People are going to add to your email list. People are going to say, hey, I'd love to take her workshop or do this. So long term, it's still going there. But I always tell my clients that revenue cannot be the first goal, because it's not realistic. And if you set up to sell, then that's a selling podcast that a lot of people aren't going to find a connection with.
Yeah. I love that when we first started, the first question, your answer was around the idea of coming up with a why. And I agree completely with you. I know that sometimes people think this is a little backwards, but your why should not be because I want to build wealth solely with this podcast. Your why is probably bigger than that, and you need to examine and evaluate what that is. Yeah, that might be, kind of like the thing that comes from what you're doing. But what is it that you're really passionate about? What do you love to talk about with people? How do you love to connect? Right? Even outside of being on a video camera, if you're just talking to a person at the park, or you happen to, sit next to someone at a movie theater before the movie starts, even though I hate when that happens. Maybe you're on a plane. How about that? That's a better one. You're on a plane and somebody starts talking to you. What would you love to talk about with them it just energizes you? And I think it's so important to think first about what that why is, like Julie said, and then the wealth building and all of the other strategies around that. Those are things that will come, or that you can build into the plan. But you have to start with the passion. When does just start messy help, though?
Well, like I said, that's how I started. So I can't tell people not to do that. I mean, I don't even want to go back and listen to those first few episodes of my pet podcast. It was just grainy, and I was just learning how to edit audio, and, dogs were barking and all sorts of things. But that was kind of the point of what you just said. I knew at any given time, give me a mic, talk about pets, let's go. I don't need to prep. I can share stories. I can talk about people I know, whatever it is, right? And so that's why it was easy. And also for me, with my previous career in education and psychology, the interview part is easy for me. I don't really have to think about it. It's a natural part of something I learned, decades ago how to do. So that's why I love it. And I actually have a hard time with my business podcasts doing more solo, because those are harder for me, because it's me just talking to the void versus being here with you going back and forth, like that's the easy part for me. So that is also something I have to work on for myself. And it's really easy for me to have lots of interviews, but those don't necessarily tie into revenue goals for me as much as solos do.
I want to mention, I want to dig deeper into that exact thing. So there's several different ways. If you all are catching what we're putting down here, one of the things that you've already talked about is the idea that there are different versions or different objectives for podcasts. So it might be to support a specific cause. It might be a hobby. It might be because you literally do want to do this for your business, right? But you're still talking about the thing that you're passionate about, right? It could be any number of reasons, but then when you get into format, that's another decision that you need to make. You need to decide, would I be more comfortable starting out solo and not having to worry about all the guesting workflows and all of those things that come with interviewing people? Or do you prefer to have the conversation and the energy of the connection on camera, right? I am exactly the opposite, Julie, in that, I mean, seriously, like I love, love, love. And I started out doing solo videos and solo podcasts because I just was more comfortable with the timing and I had things structured a certain way. And, I didn't have to worry about people fitting into my little, my little world.
More control.
Yes.
Which, hey, I get it. You never know what someone else could say. And we all have different reasons for it, right?
Yes. But what I love is that you have options. You have options. Let me put this up here. There's a couple of different comments that I definitely want to share. Yeah. Dan Roth, I'm the biggest OG ever. You are, Dan. Welcome. Thank you, Dr. Vibe Show. I think it's awesome that you always ask about the family, and we're doing well. I hope that you and your family are doing well. You're fine and safe too. Dan, I'm not putting that up there. Let's see. Let me go back. Let me go to this first. The passion of the podcasters, Connie says, at Podfest was what put a seed in me that maybe I could take my passion and start a podcast. So did you get to attend this past year?
I didn't.
Okay. I missed it this year too, but I was there the last 2 years.
Yeah, that's where we met, was 2025 Podfest.
Oh my goodness. You know what? So that was worth it to me to meet people like yourself.
Yeah, one of the things I love about podcasting, and it's amplified at Podfest because you get to do it in person with lots of people, is the connection and the community. I mean, I've met so many amazing people that I never would have if I hadn't started a podcast, and not just in the pet world, but in podcasting. And why I love encouraging people to join podcasting, because it is a community. There's so many people that will help you, that will share their tips, that will be a guest those first few episodes. And Podfest is one of those places. I was really bummed I didn't get to go, and I was so happy to see Connie go. And when she told me, I think I'm gonna want to start a podcast now, I'm like, yep, that's the Podfest effect.
That's what happens when you surround yourself with people that are doing something that interests you. It could be the seed you need. Let's see, I can relate with your guests. I find doing solo show. Yep. So I can see that, Dr. Vibe, because you're very much I won't say an extrovert because I'm not sure that that's true, but I'm going to say I've seen you just flow when it comes to interviews, even when you and I met. And Julie, you're the same. You just flow when it comes to these interviews. And I, over time, have learned the art, but it's much easier for me to do solo. So I just love that you have the option to do whatever suits you.
Right. And I know a lot of people that have started off one or the other because that was easier. I know people who were scared to death to do interviews and like, I have no idea what to ask people. What am I supposed to do?
You see, Dan, we are not AI. But I also don't know Morse code enough to do eye blinks.
No. But I will say that is something that has come up a lot for me in conversations is this idea of competing with AI. Is it worth it? And all I can say to people is yes, because people are craving real. When I
Yes.
see something that I think is AI, I scroll. I want people who I can tell, are imperfect, which means they're real and they're an actual person.
Look, I'm going to second and third and fourth that one because this is why I talk about live streams. And the power of live streams is that we're sitting here together and really having like a true conversation. I don't know what the next thing is you're going to say. You don't know if I might go a little off script, which I already have with some of the questions, right? Because I always do. But we're having real discussion and dialogue. And the people that are in the chat, they are real people who are, I'm assuming, look, let me put it out there. I think you all are real, who are asking questions and having chatter back and forth with each other. And that's a beautiful thing. The community and engagement aspect of doing video, especially when it comes to live video, is like nothing that I know right now. Can we talk a little bit about video integration with Apple? What are your thoughts about this whole thing? And maybe can you start with just sharing a little bit about what you know the announcement shared?
I will be honest, I don't know the technology behind it.
Yeah.
I know some tech, but not all. But when I heard that basically Apple was going to be allowing video episodes in their app, which has been traditionally audio only, I thought, oh, okay. Because it was Spotify.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the other side is, now we see YouTube is the number one podcast platform for people. It's above Apple and Spotify now.
Yeah.
And today I saw data that said, where do you find your podcasts? And on YouTube, it was 64% YouTube. I find other podcasts on YouTube. And it was
Mm-hmm.
in the 15 to 20 on Apple and Spotify that someone's found it on YouTube and gone to the other app. What does that say is people are using YouTube in a lot of ways.
Mm-hmm.
For me, the big question around what Apple is doing with video, it comes back to this people of, I like traditional audio only versus video. What a podcast is very broad now than it was a year ago or 2 years ago. And so what Apple is doing is responding to what they're seeing in the market. There are now
Mm-hmm.
podcasts on Netflix.
Yeah.
Platforms like Riverside are not just streaming and recording now. Now they're actually hosting podcasts too.
Yeah.
That gives somebody the allowance to do everything in one place. And Apple's like, oh, we're missing out. We're missing. And so one of the things I always want to say about video is I think sometimes people talk about it as a either or.
Mm-hmm.
Audio only versus video, but for me it really isn't. It's an there are people that are only in the spaces where it's video and you don't
Yeah.
want to miss connecting with them. So for me, I just see Apple responding to that.
And I'll add this because I am a video first coach and creator. One of the things that I know about this is that even a year or so ago, I was doing video using Apple Podcasts, but there was a very special way that you had to do it. It was like a workaround that was super whack. It was hard to do, complicated, unless you had exactly the right tools and platforms in order to be able to connect it in and to make it video. And the other thing is because Apple really wasn't pushing it and saying, hey, go come watch these video podcasts, because they weren't making it really publicized that those were even
Right.
available. People would sometimes see them, sometimes they wouldn't, because like you said, they were pushing the audio version. So now, even though it's not necessarily a new thing, as I know some people are out there saying that it is, what they have done that is new on the Apple side of things is they've made it more accessible. So you don't have to do the complicated workarounds that you did before, but you still do need to find the specific platforms that allow you to convert, to move the video into their podcast space. So, and not all of them are doing that, right, Julie?
Yeah, my host is Buzzsprout, which I love. Shout out Buzzsprout. I host all my podcasts there, and I encourage my clients to, because it's very user friendly, very easy to use and set up. But one of the things they don't do is any sort of video. And so now I'm like grappling with, what do I do? Because right now it's me doing it. It's taking the episode that I do all the editing and everything in video, convert it to audio, send it to Buzzsprout, and then I send the video to my YouTube channels. So the idea that I could go somewhere and they do that for me and it's a less step is very appealing. And so I think a lot of what we're seeing and we're going to continue to see is all these platforms realize where they're missing and where they may lose people because they aren't doing those other steps for us.
Yes. It's kind of like, I'm just going to call them out. Restream. And look, Ecamm Live came along for the ride recently, but the whole idea of being able to broadcast horizontally and vertically at the same time, which is what we're doing right now. So on YouTube, I'm literally broadcasting in both layouts. And it was super simple to do this in StreamYard. And I wasn't even prior to this year a StreamYard fan. I'm just going to be real. So Ecamm Live has been my number one, the main platform that I have used for years now when it comes to streaming. But StreamYard made this so appealing because it literally was the click of a couple of buttons to be able to broadcast in both. And when I saw the value, because the verticals were getting a lot more views than my horizontals in YouTube, but I didn't want to miss out. Like, you get the beauty of having these layouts in whatever dimensions your audience is going to consume them. I was like, hey, Restream, I've been with you guys for a long time. It's kind of like my backup and my secondary. When are you going to make it easy for us to do these layouts? And it was kind of like, well, we're not quite ready. We've got some things in the works. So the other day I just saw something pop out, but it still requires that you have to get an OBS plugin and do a bunch of other stuff. And I thought, my question for you is, how can you make this easy for me? Because like you said, Julie, some of these platforms have to listen, not some, if you have a business and you're serving clients like us, you got to listen to what your clients are asking for in the moment. And right now, people are asking for video. Dan put a note in here. So many people are forced to work 2 jobs now. There's a severe lack of time to listen compared to pre-pandemic, at least for me. So he's having struggles being able to even listen. And maybe he's able to, I don't know if you can listen or watch it on YouTube, Dan, if that's the point there. But people want to consume information how they want to consume it.
And they want options.
And so to your point, video right now is the hot thing. I still think there's beauty and power in audio. Yes. But it's so much easier to me, being a video first person, to take a video and break that out into audio, video, images, text, all of those things, starting with video first. So yeah, it's something for everybody to definitely consider. And Connie, yes, vertical, horizontal. So here's the deal. The reason why we have vertical is because it uses up more effectively the real estate on a mobile device. So a lot of times people are watching or listening from their phones. And if you are only using our horizontal layout, you're not taking up the full space. And so what we're able to do now in this live stream that we're doing right this minute is people who are watching from their phones, that includes people on Instagram and other spaces, are able to see us in full view. They don't have to be like...
This is an important thing too for people new to podcasting. Is part of your process is figuring out how it looks in all the places. And it's not just the video or the audio itself. It's like your cover, your thumbnails. Like I don't know how many times I would have people tweaking their cover and I said, there's too much. I go, think about where you're going to see it. You're going to see it on a phone. They're not going to be able to see anything, right?
I love it. Roy, thank you. Thank you. Dr. Julie is the truth. Like, she knows her stuff. So I'm so thankful to have her here. What are some tips for people that you think are considering? They're kind of like on the ledge and they're considering starting a podcast right now, what do they really need to, if there were three things they need to do next, because they haven't started at all, what would those three things be?
Well, the first thing I would say is guest. If you have never guested on any podcast, do that, because that's going to give you a sense of what it feels like, right? And if people do it and hate it, well, then you probably shouldn't invest a lot of time into podcasting, because that's what you're going to be doing, right? Or the other side of it is, what I love as a guest is I learn from others. Like, I had no idea that you could do these different versions now in live streaming. So I learn good and bad. I learn what I like I see other hosts doing. And then I also be like, I will never do that to my guest. I will never do, you know what I mean? So I always say guest if you haven't, because if you want to invest, you want to get the feeling. The other thing is, one thing I do tell people is to think about what your first 5 to 10 episodes would be.
Mm.
So start thinking about topics, guests, what would that look like? That, I think, helps people a lot get some ideas flowing, and then that can help with thinking about a title, thinking about a description. So, outlining that first 5 to 10 is really important, because you want to have those ready before you ever say you're launching. And then the third one is research. What is your topic, your niche, your business? Go out and start looking at what other podcasts are doing in those areas. Search keywords and topics in listen notes, search in podcast apps, search on YouTube, see what's out
Wait,
there.
tell them what Listen Notes is.
Okay, there we go. So listennotes.com, which I should probably have an affiliate with, because I'm always telling people to use it. Not that it's a paid service. Listennotes.com is a podcast directory. It is literally a search website for podcasts. Has millions of, there we go, listen notes. And I tell people to use this as a guest, as a host, as a potential host, because you are going to get some information on listen notes you will not see anywhere else. It's giving you data and things that you can't see when you're looking at Apple Podcast or even on YouTube. So I always tell, research is what I used to do, but it's important to do research before you jump into something. It's also a great place if you have been guesting but haven't been collecting the links. Put your name in listen notes and you'll see any episodes that you are mentioned in.
Ooh. Okay, give me something to put in here. What would you, if you're new, what's an example? Let's put something in here and see.
Let's think about that. Let's say you have a business where you help people become speakers.
Okay.
Let's see, how to become a speaker or landing speaking gigs, those kinds of things. I love to do that to see what podcasts come up when do you do that.
Okay.
And some of them are literally how to be a speaker is the name of the podcast. But if you click on one of those, because I want to show people some things. So this top part is great because it's going to give you some info. It will list here in this space if they are a top 5%, top 2%. It's going to give that data that you can't really find other places. So you can see it right at the top. It gives you the description. And then if you scroll down a little bit below, usually below that, it shows you what categories it's listed under. It tells you, how many episodes it has, how often is it released. So it's giving you a lot of stuff that you can't see when you're just listening to one. And so that's what I love. And then whenever you're on a podcast, on the right above all the ads, they recommend, if you scroll down a little bit, they say recommendations based on the one you're looking at. So this is great for research, because especially if you're guesting and you're trying to find good podcasts for what you do, once you find a good one, it's going to keep recommending more. And it's kind of like a domino effect of content.
Very cool. I just wanted to make sure, because I know I've seen listen notes, but I know some people probably were asking, what does that mean? So that's awesome. Yeah. Thank you for the demo, for the instant demo. See, I told you I was going to do some stuff.
Well, and honestly, and if Connie's still listening, she will tell you it is one of the first things I tell people to do, whether you want to guest or host or both, is do research. And listen notes is going to give you a lot of info you can't really see other places. But it's also going to be like, oh, wait, no one who is a speaker coach is talking specifically about this. And so you can also see where maybe there are gaps that you can be the specialty in that area.
Ding, ding, ding. Y'all, this is ideas. I love it. Let me see. Um, okay, so somebody, Dr. Vibe Show is asking his own platform that he uses. It's on the roadmap. That's the same thing I got too. Yeah, yeah. So they have to listen because we can easily move. Nowadays, it's all about availability of different platforms, and there's so many different options right now that they got to get with it. Listen Notes is a great resource, Connie says.
She's a good student. I'm just kidding.
I love it. Thank you, Connie, for confirming and reaffirming.
And one thing I also want to say back to people thinking about it is like start networking with podcasters. Find communities like Podfest, like, I could rattle off a bunch of different communities I know of. Start looking for groups, because it's one of the reasons I have a community is because I want to introduce it to people who are a little scared, who are like, I could never do that. And then they start hearing others and they're like, wait, I could do that. Oh, I would love that, So sometimes you got to hang out with the people you want to be like.
That's smart. That actually is a good idea, because then you get ideas. One of the things you mentioned that I wanted to pull out of your talk about Listen Notes is when you're hanging around other people, when you're reading more in the niche that you're trying to be in, when you're listening to other podcasts, when you're going to Listen Notes and researching, what you're able to find, and you said this, but I don't want people to miss it, is that you can find where you fill the gap. You can figure out, okay, what are they not saying that I know my voice could be used to say in that space? Yep. And that is beautiful, because that's an idea that differentiates you and allows you to really speak on something, again, that you love and that you're passionate about, but at the same time, you're giving a different spin than anyone else.
Yeah, and I think sometimes people think, well, so-and-so's already doing that. And I have been on probably a dozen podcasts that are about podcasting, which is what one of mine is about, right? But we all do it a little differently, or maybe you're doing a different part of it. So I can still be on theirs and they can be on ours, and we're still offering different pieces to the puzzle, even though we're both talking about helping people start podcasts, right?
Yes. Yes. Look, like us. We're here and we're talking about this. I talk about video podcast and live streaming, specifically live streaming, because that's my happy space. But but it's not about a competition. It literally, I really believe this in my heart of hearts, and I hope that people feel that when I say it. I believe that there is an audience for everyone, right? I believe that if you have the courage to stand up and to make an impact with your voice, talking about what you know and what you're passionate about, there's going to be an audience for you. And then there are going to be people that are not for you. I actually had to ban somebody just a few minutes ago who is not for us. I'm not even joking. So you'll know that there are segments of people that are meant for you and to be a part of your community. Even if you haven't started, I'm not talking about your membership. Right. I'm not saying that you've gone ahead and done something formally where you're charging people and all of that. I'm saying your community. When you say community, Julie, what does that mean to you? Because you're a strong community builder with Podcast Your Story. I've seen it grow. I've seen you mature in that space, even in the short amount of time that you and I have known each other for the past couple of years. Talk about what community means to you.
Yeah, I think that I didn't realize I needed community until I got into podcasting. I think a lot of us have careers in corporate or structures that don't really allow for that. And so for me, community is anyone that follows me on social media, anyone that listens to my podcast, comes to a workshop. And for me, what I saw lacking was community specifically for women. And so when I started podcasting, there were some like She Podcast, but they were kind of fading away. They were kind of evolving, out of the space. Mm-hmm. And I started thinking there's no place. First of all, there's nowhere in podcast apps for us to select a category that says women podcasts or podcasts for
Yeah.
women. And
Mhm.
I love my big podcasting communities, like I've said, but sometimes there are things as women that we talk about, or we talk about things in a way that we don't necessarily want to ask the questions or share it in a large, multi-gender group. And
Mhm.
so for me, what I found was I needed community. I was very lucky to find some great communities early in my journey in podcasting. And I always shout out Tiffany Kane and David Seiss of Casa Media because they created that community for me. And now I model it in my own. And it's a safe space. It's a place where there are no
Yeah.
stupid questions. It's okay to be just starting or afraid to start. And so for me, community is creating a place for anyone, but also cultivating it through all the things I do, not just when I host a networking event.
Mhm. And I do want to say this too. It's okay for you to create exclusive communities, y'all. Don't feel like you have to be for everyone. Like I already mentioned, I will tell you that my community, Stream Bosses Academy, originally started out with like a big, wide net. The more over time since 2021, it was birthed in 2021, it's still going on today. And about 70% of the women who are in that space have been there with me since 21. And that's rare for memberships, right? But the reason for that is because I became very protective and set very safe space boundaries for them because I knew there were certain elements of things, conversations that were being introduced that were tainting the conversation that we originally were having that was so pure and so open and so honest. So you get to set, if you're the community builder and the facilitator, whether it's for your podcast or any other space, you get to set the boundaries and decide, how do I want to run this thing? You create the rules.
Yep.
And I love that you have created rules in Podcast Your Story. And like I said, I know I've seen some things that you've been putting out even recently that are really exciting to me because I can just see the growth and the maturity of the spaces that you're building, Julie. And I'm excited. And speaking of that, before we get ready to wrap, you've got a new podcast coming. Can you talk a little bit about that? Is that okay?
Yeah, as you figured out, I love podcasting, and I've found I'm an introvert like you, Tanya. I get my energy being alone and being quiet, but once you get me going, it's like, okay, where do I get to go next, right? So one of the things I've struggled with is my podcast about podcasting is there's so much going on in our world. There's a lot of hot topics that I want to talk about, but I
Mhm.
don't want it to muddy the waters of my podcast helping my business. And so from all of that, probably the last 6 months, I thought, okay, I'm just going to do it. So I created with no preparation. I literally recorded the trailer and episode 1 the same day and launched it. So I also, you can do that. And so my newest
Oops.
podcast is called Still Becoming Women Unmuted. And it's, for the women who are sick of whatever it may be, and they want a space to share their story, their perspective, a space to talk. And so my big project with it right now is I'm creating multiple panels of amazing women, mostly podcasters, and I'm going to be releasing on March 8th, International Women's Day, a series of panels on topics for women by women, including how to podcast, how to build community, but also things like women's health and access to healthcare, mental health, chronic illness, different issues. Myself, we're doing a panel on child-free women and cultural stereotypes. So it's really kind of a playground for me to get to talk about the other things.
Mhm.
And with all these amazing women I've connected with through podcasting.
And you can find her new podcast over at her website, juliemartypearson.com, because that's super exciting. And I really wanted to make sure that people knew about that coming. There are definitely stories that need to continue to be told. And it's not, when I say exclusive, I don't mean necessarily, hey, we're going to just like put an X on all men. That's not what I'm saying at all. What I'm saying is you have a responsibility to the people that you are intended to serve. There's a purpose that each and every one of us has. And I love being able to serve a broad range of people in different ways in other spaces. When it comes to that community, that specific community, I know that it's my mission to help those women who are over 50, over 40 and 50 and 60 that are in the space because they feel like, hey, we can finally hear or be heard, right? We can hear things that relate to where we are in our season of life and we can be heard.
Yep.
So if that is something that is a mission for you, for whatever group of people that may look like, embrace that.
Yep.
Embrace that and find where you're allowing those stories to be told and you're telling stories too in these spaces that people feel like, hey, I'm actually connecting and I feel supported and I feel encouraged to grow. Whatever
And I
that
think
looks like for you.
yeah, and I
So,
think even more so for women, there I think we've all had those times where we wish we had somebody to talk to about what we're going through, whatever it may be. And think about if you felt that way, then there's somebody out there right now that feels that way and you could help them. And I too, I'd never omit people. My most recent group program for launch had a man in it, and he even said, "Is it okay if I join?" I said, "Yeah, him and I really fit. We had, we click and we work
mhm.
well together." So it's not that we won't support certain people, but when we're speaking on certain topics and sharing certain stories, we know who we are called to serve and to support. Absolutely.
And we have a male as well in our community who has been with me for a long time and we love him. And he's, he fits right into everything that we talk about. The thing is that we all have a common goal. And it's not about who they're being in the moment. It is literally about, are you able to listen and to hear? Are
Yeah,
you
and
able to
I think
support?
it goes back to what we said earlier, which I want to just kind of solidify again is what I had to learn in business, and I have also evolved learning in podcasting, is again, I'm not for everyone. I don't
Yep.
vibe with everyone. I don't, speak to everyone. But there are people out there that are right for you.
Yeah.
And one of the things about podcasting is that it helps you find those people for you
Hmm.
and for your business in a way that you can't find on social media or through an email list or any of that.
Yes. 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 Thank you so much, Dr. Vibe Show. And Connie, yes, encouraged to grow. Love that so much. Did you see that?
Yes.
Um, I'm still waiting to figure out what I want to do. And look, here's the thing, Roy. It's okay. Wherever you are, and look, I had to have this conversation with my kids recently. Wherever you are in the moment, that's where you're meant to be. Your question shouldn't be, oh my God, why am I not where I'm supposed to be? It should be, how do I learn from this space that I'm in right now? The seat that I'm in, wherever I am, how am I learning from this? What is the lesson that I'm supposed to take away? Right? I love that there are so many different groups for different things. There are book club groups. As you mentioned earlier, there are groups for pets. You've had, the podcast for pets. And that is one thing that is also magical, by the way, y'all. If you haven't really picked up on that, is when you create these podcasts, you can turn them, you can leverage those into community spaces that become a safe space to talk about, continue the conversation that you started on the podcast, right? Whatever the topic is that you cover. And I love
Absolutely.
that.
My pet podcast has connected me to some awesome people that I just like, wow, what they do for animals and people. And I will give the example of, I've had it for 4 years and I've interviewed a lot of people all around the world. And this past year I was at CatCon in Pasadena
Oh my
with three
goodness.
with 3,000 other cat lovers. And what was very cool about it was I got to meet three different people who I had interviewed on my podcast in person because they were there with a table at the expo hall or whatever it was. And that is, I would have never even known them, let
Yeah.
alone, it's just this what I want people to understand about podcasting is that it opens up your world in a lot of ways that you can't even anticipate.
Mhm.
And then you get to meet cool people like Tanya and hang out with them and talk with them. And and I do have to shout you out, because very early on after we met at Podfest, you came to my community and you shared and you taught about live streaming. And so that for me is what community is about, is a space where people are willing and able to help each other, but also it's not competitive. It's
Yeah.
like, well, why wouldn't I share what I know with you? Because somewhere it'll reciprocate back to me.
Mm-hmm. Paying it forward, right? Yeah, I get to be in rooms with a lot of tech guys, like my brothers. I have met over the last couple of years, Julie, I would say probably about 10 or so wonderful, amazing, intelligent men who I get to hang out with for technology forum or for other different types of conversation. And those are different rooms than what Stream Bosses Academy looks like. But we get to put ourselves in spaces because of podcasting that otherwise we may not have ever connected. A lot of the friends, the true friends that I have right now in this moment are people that I have met because of live streaming, video podcasting, and showing up in some of these different conferences.
Yep.
And you're right. I would not have met you had it not been for Podfest. So I feel blessed.
We're just having a love party here now.
I know. It's true. It's true. Okay. Anything that you feel like people, let me do this real quick before we go. I'm going to do a lightning round. Okay.
There we go.
I didn't put this in the structure. Okay. But half of the stuff we talked about, I didn't have in the notes, but that's why it's fun. Yep. Here's a lightning round. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, give me a word that describes why you shouldn't start a podcast. In one word.
Work.
Okay. Why should you start a podcast? One word.
Empowerment.
What is one word for the type of podcast you should create?
Authentic.
Favorite gear for a podcast? Your favorite gear? One.
Mic. Okay. And a mic cover. I get so many compliments on my cheap pink cover.
And it's cute. Hey, it's cute.
And also set up an environment around you that makes you happy, because you're staring back at it every day. And I love switching up my photos, and I'm in the process right now of putting up new ones. So, create the space that makes you happy, I think, is also part of it.
Yes, absolutely. I'm thinking really hard. My husband's almost convinced me, hey, it's probably time for you to switch it up. But I love my space right now, so I don't know. Maybe next time you see me, I might have a different space, but we'll see. Julie, thank you so much for taking time to hang out with me. I can't believe that time has flown.
I know.
Because, it just was fun to me. Let me acknowledge some folks that are over here on Substack, because beautiful comment. Y'all are going to make me start podcasting. We're supposed to be here to give you the balanced view.
Yeah, you get two podcasters in a room. Everybody wants to podcast.
Right. But it's a beautiful thing when you connect with other people. And I feel like opportunities to connect in this way with podcasting, whether you use video, audio, or however you choose to connect, find real life ways to connect with real life people, because we need that, especially with all the things that are coming at us as it relates to AI, automation, you name it. We need to connect with each other. So please make sure you take the time to do that, whether you start a podcast or not, because of Dr. Julie. Make sure that you do follow her, by the way. And again, let me pop up your website one more time, because I want people to be able to see that. We're over here This is juliemartypearson.com. Let me pop up the banner again one quick time so folks know where to follow. But is there anything that you would like to leave us with your final words, Julie?
Gosh. I think it's just if you feel a calling, if you've been feeling like a nudge to do it, whatever it is, whether it's a video podcast or audio or just posting more on social, or connecting more with people, just do it. Try it. I'm so glad I did. You could not have told me 4 years ago I would be here with multiple podcasts and that was my business.
Yes.
So you never know. But if you feel the passion, the urge around it, there's something there and you should see where it takes you.
I love that. And we're going to just wrap it up right there because that was the mic drop moment, folks. We appreciate you again, Dr. Julie Marty-Pearson, for coming on to the show. Folks in the audience, wherever you were from in Substack, we got people that have converted that are going to become podcasters. We want to hear from you. Some folks are following you, by the way, now, Julie, over on Substack. So I know you'll welcome them with open arms. I see folks that are on Instagram. I see folks on YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook. Wherever you are, we thank you so much for listening and for joining us tonight. I am going to plan on being here next week, potentially. And if I am not, I will make sure to let you know via email. So if you have not already subscribed, we have a new subscription or a new newsletter that I'm sending out on Saturdays and Sundays called In the Stream. So definitely stay in the know and know what's going on by joining us at streamlikeaboss.tv. Now, I'm going to pull this up real quick. Streamlikeaboss.tv/links will link you to wherever you choose to follow and stay connected with me. Okay. So YouTube, LinkedIn, wherever is your happy place, I'm probably there.
Yeah, because you are literally everywhere. Like, it's impressive.
It's amazing. I always wanted to multiply myself. And so now I get to do that with the power of tech. Hey. Thank you again, Julie. I hope you have an amazing evening and a great weekend. And I know we're going to connect really soon.
Thank you so much for having me. And thank you to everyone that was here with us.